Each year at the Compliance 1010, we release the annual edition of the Enchiridion. As we go digital this year, so does the Enchiridion. We present to you the vlog of interviews by legal honchos across various sectors. We invite you to watch along.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For our Enchiridion log, we have Shujat with us. Welcome, Shujat. Shujat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shujat is a graduate in Commerce and Law, a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and a master's in law with specialization in dispute resolution, mediation, and international commercial arbitration. He attended several executive programs from Harvard University, ISB, and NLS, and continues his journey on education. He's a capable, competent, and a result-oriented general counsel, company secretary, ethics and compliance officer with more than 20 years of corporate legal experience with leading MNCs of diverse sectors like pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, software, information technology-enabled services, and professional service sectors. He has overseen governance, regulatory, corporate secretarial, and legal, ethics and compliance functions, providing strategic legal oversight and operational oversight for the business. He is very active in the academic and professional circles and has always involved himself in various thought leadership activities. He was the youngest chairman of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Hyderabad chapter. He also served as a member of corporate law, legal, IPR Federation of Andhra Pradesh Chambers and Commerce of Industry. Shujat was recognized as one of India's finest in-house counsels, a recognition by the Indian Corporate Counsel Association, supported by Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Law and Justice, the Government of India, of course, and also named as one of the top 100 general counsels in India by legal500.com. Welcome again. So, Shujat, you mentioned you're very passionate about what we call as GRACE, governance, risk, audit, compliance, and ethics. We'd love to get your views on governance and compliance, and that is closest to your heart. What is your driving principle about these subjects?
Yeah, so thanks, Jerry, firstly for nice words of introduction and also for the opportunity. So yes, definitely the word grace which you mentioned is something definitely close to my heart. Talking about governance and compliance, I think some of the driving principles, for me, is that while businesses aspire to, make profits and, grow on, however, considering the complex regulations which we are having in and the kind of a complexity in a regulatory space which we are in with the, differing views and, different objectives of various stakeholders, I think governance and compliance are at the forefront, these days. And it is very important for professionals like us to be, value additional and, providing, trusted advice to the boards, to the management, to the businesses in terms of governance and compliance. And the key aspect, for professionals like us would be to demonstrate how governance and compliance can really help the sustainability of an organization in the long term, unlike thinking it as showstoppers. So I think that is a key role which we professionals have to play in terms of governance and compliance, and that has been my journey so far, as to be the ambassador for the governance and compliance within the organization, and propagating it to the stakeholders. These are my initial remarks.
Thank you. Clearly, Shujat, you've been through this journey several times. How would you recommend to the audience one goes about seeding this in the organization culture? I mean, once you are an ambassador, the tone from the top is extremely critical. How do you establish that, and how do you build the entire culture of compliance?
Yeah, thanks, Jaideep. That question is very close to my heart because I work in several organizations, and the thing is to assess the culture which is there in the organization at that particular point of a time, and this is something which is very important. Oftentimes, you also experience some of the organizations which have which says that there is a culture of compliance, but there is not, right? So it's pretty important to firstly understand what is the existing culture of the compliance by letter and by spirit as well. And then I think as you rightly said, it's the tone at the top which is absolutely critical. And more importantly, it takes a lot of time and effort to convince the management about why this culture of compliance is needed. I mean, because typically you have people from diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures, people coming from various organizations, and they imbibe certain practices. And very important, for them to really understand that the business can be done by still being strong in governance and compliance. And I think that is the most important factor, which we need to sell. And secondly, talking about the cost of non-compliance and cost of organization not being in a proper governance situation. I think once we explain to them, I think you can buy the confidence of the top management. And then I think the journey goes on from the owner at the top to the middle management, and also at the belief at the bottom. I mean, I say that belief at the bottom, and also tone at the middle and tone at the top, all are required. If none of these three things are there, it would be very difficult. And again, some of these terminologies are all good, the fancier. And I keep telling, when I address my team and people in various organizations, I will tell these terms look fancier to you, but unless and until it is really implemented, believed, I mean, all these will just be mere good words and good things in the policies and documents. So I feel it's more of a personal investment in the belief systems. They really have to believe why it is important. And these days, you have a lot of examples which you can quote. I mean, whether it is global examples or Indian examples, there are a lot of case studies which you can talk about. See, here is a situation where it is a business which is doing well just because of some of this governance and compliance failures. See where they are. Do we really want to be there? So I think these kind of conversations are really needed to build the tone at the top, and that's a big journey. And just to summarize this particular question, I think professionals like us have to spend a lot on changing the culture, and talking about cultural transformation. A lot of effort is needed.
Thank you so much. The belief at the bottom is something which is very important. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I mean, what we've seen at organizations when we help our clients implement the compliance management systems is the planning is great, the tone from the top is excellent, we get all the management support and the buy-in. And then when the entire process of implementation or even the post-implementation settling in period starts, that's when a lot of pushback is seen. And if I may use the term passive aggressive pushback kind of comes in. Hey, this is not relevant to us. We never asked for this. We've always been doing it like this. Why is it necessary to do this? This is too much of an overhead and so on. So it takes time for the tone from the top message to percolate down belief of bottom. And sometimes the alignment is not there, because while good governance at boards kind of requires you to have that perspective, doing the right thing, cost of non-compliance and so on, but the bottom, they kind of see it as a overhead or as a impediment to they doing their job. Some even see it as policing. I'm sure you've come across these challenges. Can you give us some practical tips on how you overcome that?
Yeah, so I think, Jaideep, as you said, definitely, I mean, it will be seen as a little bit of overhead, extra time, a lot of policing and all of that stuff. However, I mean, I generally try to use a very simplistic approaches, and as simple as that, sometimes when I do communicate with them, I say, see, we're like a doctors, and, as a doctors, our, objective of suggesting you something or asking you to follow a particular protocol is in the interest of you, the health and fitness. I'm more concerned about you. I'm more concerned about your business. I'm more concerned about your site. I don't want you to get troubled by a disruption of work, or troubled by any litigation, or troubled by any reputational issue. I mean, I'm more concerned about you. And hence we are suggesting these measures. And of course, and I give examples like healthy food, can never be appeasing on the face of it. A stringent fitness regime will definitely not appeal to you, right? So it is just like that. I mean, initially it will not sound good, but slowly as you follow in, you will be happy, and you can actually have a peaceful sleep. I would say, as a factory head or as a business head, you should sleep peacefully. And some of these systems, which we are talking about, or policies, is actually for helping you. So I try to change the focus largely on him. It's like, I care for you, I concern for you, I don't want you to pay fines, I don't want you to go jail, you are the occupier. So I think when we engage in this kind of a dialogue, you see some success. Of course, it will take time, but I think you need to make it personal and try to give the message in a as simplistic manner. It's not like what I want, what we want, what board wants. It's like what we want to do it for you. I think we just need to change the dialogue, and then you are hopeful that you see some benefits. I think once they start seeing some benefits out of it, I think then they will adapt to it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a wonderful perspective. We kind of talk about it from the occupier's point of view, how it's going to help them and ease that situation. Thank you so much for that. So we've spoken about the tone from the top. We've spoken about belief at the bottom. There is always this middle layer in the organization who's, as we call, the sandwich layer. They get it on both the ends. They've been at the bottom and they are now there, and they are on their journey to be at the top. How has your engagement been with these function heads, department heads? Because they are the ones who can actually translate the tone of the top to the belief at the bottom. What's been your experience around that?
I think in so far in my career is concerned, I think the middle management are the key stakeholders for the whole the program, and it is very important to bring them on board early on and start involving them. I mean, from that standpoint, you can create a lot of many committees and seek their inputs and make them involved from the beginning, and talk about various advantages and the features and the benefits, what they can see. I think it's very important to engage with them, because and sometimes the middle management can actually help spreading the message quite fast. So I think my engagement with middle management is very, very important, and more importantly, because sometimes what happens, they get dual messages. I mean, and they are the ones who are at threshold of multiple challenges. While they have to grow the revenue, they have to grow the profits, they have to get the things done fast, and they need to be compliant. And sometimes when I get to engaging with these, I mean, they will say, I mean, we have to do everything, and how do we balance all these things? And I think that's the struggle what they have. And I mean, when you interact with them, I think I mean, you understand their issues, be more empathetic to them, and say that yes, I understand. However, these are all things also very important, largely because that will help you grow that revenue profit. If you have a problem of business disruption and any of these things, I mean, ulta aapka cost badi jayega, and you will have a problem. So I think, with the middle management, I think legal and compliance professionals first have to be empathetic, right? I think first you will have to be like a sounding board and let them speak, whatever their concerns are, and then, acknowledging that concern, and then, talk about your agenda as well, and try to say why it is really helpful for them. I think then you will, possibly get some, buy-in. But I think, we have to be more better listeners with the middle management, and try to understand their concerns, their problems, and try to offer some solutions also. Yeah, but they are literally a key, for the whole implementation. See, tone at the top, of course, in these all board level conversations, I mean, they all, it's easier to align. Belief at the bottom, you do a lot of trainings and all that stuff. But I think the middle management are very, very crucial, so that when you have the constant engagement with them. And yes, of course, there are challenges.
Right. No, thank you so much. I think this has been a very good flow. So we spoke about tone from the top, belief at the bottom, and how the middle management can help translate. So we've covered literally all three lines of defense. Shujat, let's shift gears a little bit. our audience would love to know more about you. Let me ask you a out of the box question. So, if you weren't in this space, what would have been your alternate career choice?
Yeah, that's a good one. So my alternate career, would have been possibly teaching or being mentoring. In fact, in my career over a period of a time, I've been part of Toastmasters Internationals. I've been, thought leader in the Institute of Company Secretaries. So I like to teach the company secretaries and the law students. I do various guest faculty roles in some of the law colleges, management colleges, and Institute of Company Secretary as well. So I mean, easily, if possibly, if I'm not there in this profession, I would have possibly taught law and management and corporate governance and so on and so forth. That is what I could think at this point of time. And at the same time, I enjoy mentoring the students. I see really a lot of happiness if I'm able to change some perspectives or motivate students, young professionals as well. Yeah. If you have to teach something, if you have to mentor someone, I mean, you'll invest on yourself because you'll do more research, you'll learn more. So it's actually a process wherein we learn ourselves as well, and at the same time try to share some knowledge, some insights to others. So it's a mutually benefiting thing.
What keeps you motivated and on the point?
So I think the key drive for motivation is, you feel cherished and thrilled to solve some problems. I think problem solving keeps me motivated. So, for example, as a general counsel and chief ethics and compliance officer, I mean, day in day out, people call you, they send messages. There's always a problem, right? There's always a challenge. And when you try to resolve that problem, when you try to resolve that challenge, I think that makes me happy. Similarly, on the other front, as we just talked, when I'm not on job, I mean, professionals do call me saying that, oh, I have this challenge at office, how should I grow? And when I give some insights, they all say, I think that was helpful. I think it was worthwhile, it was meaningful talking to you. And when they say this and when they go back with some solutions, I think that is something which keeps me motivated.
Sujat, thank you so much. Any closing comments, tips for our audience on how to continue working in the space of grace? Any tips for them?
Yeah. So I think the GRACE term which you mentioned, the governance, risk, the audit, compliance, and ethics, are absolutely critical. And I think in the current context of enhancing regulations and enhancing demands of the various stakeholders, I think it will continue to grow. And we as a legal and compliance professionals, have to continuously uh, be a brand ambassadors and talk to various stakeholders as to why these things are really important for the business. I think it's not like that you have to do it. I think the whole dialogue has to change from you have to do it, and more than that, it should be like we want to do it, and it is good for the business, and it is the right thing. I think changing that dialogue is very important for any of our professions who are in this space. Have to continuously advocate why we want to do it, and what is the benefit of doing that, instead of telling कि we have to do it, ये करना ही है. So I think that change in the dimension, change in the thought process is really required.
Excellent, Shujat. Thank you. I think that was a very fantastic conversation. I'm sure we can speak more about all of the topics that we touched. Unfortunately, we don't have too much of time on this episode of the video log. But Shujat, we hope to get some more of your time, and we'll have a follow-up session.
Thanks, Jaydeep. It was nice engaging in a conversation on compliance governance with you. I hope for more such opportunities. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Jaydeep Kevalramani here, your host for Enchiridion. This evening, we have a very special guest with us, Anubhav Kapoor. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Jaydeep.
Anubhavji is the Group Vice President and Group Company Secretary for Cummins India. He's based out of Pune. As Chief of Legal, Anubhav is responsible for legal, intellectual property, regulatory compliance, and corporate governance practices and policies for all the entities and joint ventures of Cummins in India. Anubhav has 25 years of experience as in-house counsel, which spans across various industries, including IT, automotive, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, food, banking and insurance, software, and engineering. He has handled multifarious areas such as mergers and acquisitions, arbitration and litigation management, structuring large business contracts, IPR, global compliances, to name just a few. Also, being a company secretary, he has dealt with high visibility boards and has handled complex matters, including those related to corporate governance, insider trading, private and public offerings. Anubhav has helped corporates like Tata Technologies, Domino's, Pizza India, Polaris, to name a few, devise their IP creation and monetization strategies. He has also handled contracts and litigations involving complex IP issues. He has also been involved in IP during mergers and acquisition, spin-outs, and joint venture deals during his long career. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you, Jaideep.
So let's touch upon one of the subjects that you are very strong about, compliance. And we are talking about this during the event of Compliance 1010. Please tell us your core philosophy or driving principle about compliance.
Sure, Jaideep. I think you ask a very relevant question because compliance is such a vast subject, and it is like one term that can be so multifaceted, and the effectiveness of any compliance program basically depends on how we design the approach of it, right? So my approach for many years have been, first I started, this is like in Cummins, I'm doing my 5th compliance program, where I'm establishing or setting up the entire compliance systems for the corporate at large, right? So I would say my focus has shifted from a more prescriptive compliance regimes or approach to a more self-regulatory and peer review kind of approach that I have moved over the years, right? And I'll explain you a bit in terms of what it means, right? Many of the laws in India, as you know, are more prescriptive or are yes or no basis, right? And it's only recently that the regulations or the law, the way they have been written and panned out, have moved to more of a self-regulation, which is basically the flavor in many of the Western countries. We see that now in the new Companies Amendment Act and things like that. But what it also means is that the basis of compliance also becomes more process driven, right? So my philosophy is basically that we should make compliance easier for our stakeholders. And one way where we can make it easy is by making processes that are seamless, foolproof, well-resourced, and then well understood within the organization, so that compliance becomes automatic, and that I commonly refer to as compliance by design, right? So that is what my principles have moved over the period of years. And the new compliance program, Comply Plus, that we are implementing at Cummins, is focused on the entire principle of compliance by design.
Thank you. You spoke about making compliance process-oriented and easier for the stakeholders. A lot of leaders look at compliance as a burden. What do you have to think about that?
Jaideep, it comes to how you communicate the program within the organization, right? And of course, I think with the increase in the size, and the regulations have only become more complex over a period of time, right? And also the size of the organizations now are also more complicated, and they're becoming more global. So given that, I think some of the changes that we are seeing in the industry are, of course, automation in the compliance area, right? Legatrix is one of the very friendly and one of the products that is in the forefront of the industry in the area of compliance management. And also, but only implementing the compliance tool will not ensure or is not a guarantee for the success of any compliance program.
Correct.
I think there are 4 elements that we are building as part of our compliance program to make it much more user friendly. The first one is, of course, the automation, which includes the checklist, the thoroughness of stakeholder engagement, mapping all the laws that are applicable to the industry. The second is the training and the awareness, and that we are trying to do through many of the on-site and virtual training programs under our Comply Plus clinics that we have at different locations. And the third part is with respect to process improvements, right? If we see a compliance as very hard, or there is a propensity of that to be missed or not to be complied, we look into the process. How do we make it more friendly? How do we make the users more aware of it, and how we can structure or re-engineer the processes so that the compliances are not missed out, right? And if they are not resourced many times, we make sure they are mapped clearly. And of course, the tool helps us do that to a large extent as well. But the last is also an independent audit, right? We involve our internal auditors and also external auditors to have a review of our compliance program and map the efficacy and the processes that we follow, so that there is a continuous improvement in terms of the robustness and the completeness of the compliance program. So I think it is, you cannot attribute any one pillar to the success, but if you do 4 together in a very effective way, obviously your stakeholders will end up more engaged, and the entire program will be seen as a tool which is helping them perform better, rather than a watchdog kind of a tool which is hard and more difficult to implement. So I think it is a mindset and a communication approach that can change the entire shift of how people see the compliance program.
Thank you so much. I think crafted out kind of a snapshot of how to implement and go about strategizing the whole rollout. Thank you very much. The audience would really love to learn more about that, but maybe we can pick that up as a subject for future. Let's move a little bit further into this. I mean, having spoken about how do you ease the rollout, how do you strategize, can you give us a couple of examples of how you kind of face challenges in rolling this out, rolling out a compliance program, and how did you overcome those challenges? You have diverse experience of doing this for many companies. Maybe without stating the name of the company, if you could just share some anecdotal information, that will be good.
Absolutely. So I think any compliance program, Jaideep, first of all, has to be tailored for a company, right? It is not, as a compliance professional, I don't think there is any silver bullet that fits all, right? There is no one solution that fits all. And I think that is one of the first foundational principle that I think people who have run a program would understand, right? Because if you try to kind of fit some other compliance program of any other company in yours, there are high chances it wouldn't be successful, because every company has a different DNA, right? And I use DNA because it's also a function of the culture, the tone of the top, the entire approach towards how compliance is taken within the organization, right? And I think the biggest challenge that we face, if I can put it, is the tone of the top, right? If you can get that right, and you can communicate to the top layer management, I think rest everything falls place very easily.
Thank you so much. So now let's shift gears a little bit. Our audience would love to know more about you as a person. While we read out your excellent background, that's very impressive, but let's talk about Anubhav as a person. So, what do you do when you're not pursuing compliances, intellectual property, or challenges related to mergers and acquisitions? What do you do in your free time?
Oh, there is plenty. I get involved after, beyond that, with whatever little time I get on the weekends. I think some of the pursuits that I have is music, and I love even watching National Geographic, right? So and knowing more about the planets, that is one thing that I really like. I closely follow many of the developments that are happening in the astronomy world of astronomy, and what Hubble has to tell us. But also in my free time, I'm fond of cooking, and I think that is a very passionate hobby to pursue. Uh, mm, in I actually began my career as a chef many years ago, so that
Really?
to be one of my hobbies even now. I think the shortest way to a person's heart is through the stomach. So I thoroughly believe in that.
Most certainly. So, I think having known you for years now, this is the first time I've discovered that you too are passionate about space. I'm assuming you're a Star Trek fan also. Live long and prosper.
Absolutely. That is how we grew up, Jaideep. Remember on Sunday, Star Trek used to come, followed by
Correct.
Spider-Man.
Absolutely. So,
How can we forget Captain Spock?
who can? Who can? And
I used to put pincers, those pincers which my mother used to use for hanging clothes. We used to put it on the ear like this and be Dr. Spock.
that,
Okay.
excellent. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit into your personal space and what do you do over the weekends. Now we now know your hobbies as well. So during your work week, you're obviously very busy with executing what's on your platter. But there is a lot happening in the field of governance, risk, audit, compliance, and ethics, GRACE as we call it. How do you find the time to stay abreast of all of the developments that are happening? Are there any tips that you'd like to share with the audience on how to keep updated with all the developments?
Jadip, that is a very tough ask nowadays, right? Especially in the Indian environment where the legislative framework is going through such a rapid change, right? And that's a big challenge for someone who is in my age group, because there is a whole effort of unlearning first and then relearning what is coming, right? So I think that is one of the largest challenges that I have, and I think there is no shortcut, but one has to spend time on reading consistently, following up on the news updates and the law, and then diving deep into areas which are more relevant for you to get a better understanding. I think there's no shortcut. This is something we constantly, the time has to be invested there. But now what is also advantageous is on the social media, we get lot of capsules of knowledge and summaries of the salient changes, right? Many of our colleagues have investing their time to send presentations and knowledge distillation capsules, which are again very useful because given the limited time, you can pick up a lot of those things and then update yourself. But if you really want to dive into the law, I think the best is to digest it and personally read the entire thing. So it is a challenge, but there is, for professionals, like, there's no shortcut.
Excellent. Anubhavji, it was fantastic chatting with you. Thank you so much for all the insights. I'm sure our audience would love it. Any parting comments before we wrap?
I think the compliance role, how we have seen it, has grown over the years. I think it is very nice to see compliance almost becoming a separate professional field now, and with the depth of Legacies has been a big contributor to kind of create that environment. So I'm really hoping that going forward, the chief compliance officer, like a CFO, will be a KMP, and the compliances will no longer be seen only as company law compliances, but an entire responsibility where the board depends on that professional to ensure that the companies are compliant, both from all the 5 aspects that you mentioned, the grace aspects, right? And I think the challenges, if you see in most of the recent frauds, they are more from the grace side rather than the financial accounting defaults, you know. So I think compliances are becoming more important, and it's time that we should have a separate KMP, like a chief compliance officer, part of the regulatory framework as well.
Absolutely, Anubhav ji. Thank you very much. I think all of us in the compliance profession echo your sentiments. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your valuable insights. Once again, the audience would love to hear more from you, and hopefully we'll have more such sessions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaideep, for having me. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jaideep Kevalramani, your host for Enchiridion Video Logs. Today we have Surendra Sharma as our guest. Welcome, Surendra.
Hi, Jaideep. Thank you for inviting me for this edition.
Oh, certainly. Surendra is a part of the board and the leadership team at Colgate-Palmolive India. He leads the legal and secretarial team, devising and implementing litigation strategy, dealing with issues of ethics and corporate governance, and manages matters of corporate affairs. He has deep expertise in drafting of business agreements, litigation management, legal compliance, due diligence, regulatory issues, IPR protection and management, corporate and financial restructuring, corporate governance, and issues of securities. Surendra is absolutely diligent, comprehensive, applies strategic understanding with a go-getter attitude, coupled with multitasking abilities in driving team towards achievement of organization goals. He is a leader who is known for strong influencing and excellent management skills, with a proven track record of thinking out of the box and high resiliency with an amazing level of integrity and energy. Welcome once again. So, Surendra,
thank you so much for your kind introduction, Jaideep. Really humbled.
Certainly. So, Surendra, we know you are very passionate about ethics and compliance as a subject. So, let's start with that. I'd like to first capture your driving principles about the subject. Let's hear it from you.
Sure. You have rightly pointed out, Jaideep, ethics and compliance is a subject which is very, very close to my heart. And I'll just explain it to you. Today's world is a very complex and dynamic. So what is the one thing that differentiates between two successful individuals, or for that matter, corporate? All of them are working for profit. All of them, most of them are, equally successful. So I think it is how they have achieved their success which differentiate between, either two successful individuals or two successful corporates. So clearly, how becomes the distinguishing factor? The individual or business houses or the corporates who achieve success by adopting ethical means, compliance laws, they stand out clearly, and they are valued more, they are respected more in the society in comparison to others. So and of course, why not, when there is a premium attached to, they are more respected. So it becomes more the important that organization adopts certain ways, ethical ways of working, which gives an advantage or a differentiating factor to them. So that's broadly my philosophy with with which I work, and I like to work for companies which are much more ethical.
Certainly, I think you pointed on the right this thing. The dividend on ethics pays off in the long run, but it is kind of very difficult to set the tone in the organization. I was having a chat with one of your industry peers, and one interesting concept came up. It's like, while we have tone at the top, there is something called as belief at the bottom. So let's hear it from you. When you want to drive something like ethics, which is such a soft subject, you can't really put metrics around it, you can't put guardrails around it, and so on. How do you set the tone from the top, and how do you percolate it down to the bottom?
Oh yes, you have rightly pointed this out. It's not easy thing, but let me tell you, and I must admit that I have been fortunate enough to work for an organization which is known for its highest ethical standards. So Colgate-Palmolive, as you all know, is a global multinational company, and I'm happy to share with you that for the 10th year in a row, Colgate-Palmolive has been named as one of the world's most ethical companies by an organization named Ethisphere. Ethisphere is a global leader in defining and advancing the standards of ethical business practices. So I really feel proud and privileged to work for such an ethical organization. So having those, so, and that kind of achievement doesn't come, there's a lot of hard work, years of hard work behind, achieving those kind of recognition. So there is a robust code of conduct and then systems and procedures to implement those code of conduct. So entire leadership at Colgate-Palmolive is extremely serious about implementing the way we conduct our business. So, and that code of conduct, in fact, serves as a guide for our daily business interactions, reflecting our standards for appropriate behavior and our corporate values. So, and this code also clearly conveys to each of us that the manner in which we achieve our business results matters just as much as we, as we achieve them. So this I think is one of the most differentiating factors between the Colgate-Palmolive as an organization and other organizations. So the importance and emphasis which is given to ethical ways of working is amazing. So there's a tone set up right at the global leadership level, then at a country leadership level, and then it percolates down to the entire organization. And it implies the code of conduct equally applies to everyone, right from all the directors, all officers, employees, and all the subsidiaries equally. And in fact, it goes a step further. It extends to our vendors and suppliers who are dealing or who are doing business with the company. So adherence to code is a condition precedent for conducting business with Colgate. So you can imagine the kind of importance we at Colgate gives to compliance with our ways of working and compliance with code of conduct which we have.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and congratulations for being recognized as one of the most ethical businesses for 10th year in a row. I'm sure that will take you to an kind of an elite level. Not many businesses can claim that for 10 years in a row. So you spoke about percolating this to the vendors and the community. One of the issues, and I'll kind of try and straddle between ethics and compliance both, because third-party compliance is a big subject. Most recently, the US DOJ offered revised guidelines on how a business is also responsible for ensuring that the third-party compliances are in place. So when you talk about compliance and ethics spreading over to the third parties, what are some of the practical inputs that you can share on putting this kind of mechanisms out? Would like to hear your views on that.
So whenever we do business the vendors. We have our internal mechanism, so we do a due diligence on each party, and that due diligence also involves due diligence from ethics and compliance point of view as well. Apart from that due diligence, once we have completed the due diligence and there is a clean report, we engage with the third party. Once we have engaged, we of course time of engaging, we ensure appropriate commitment from the other side in the contract that they will adhere to the colgate ways of working, and which are adherence to our code of conduct and we have adopted our code. Then, apart from taking that commitment, once the engagement has started and our business dealings have started, we have our internal audit mechanism, with a periodic audit, which conducts from time to time, which takes care of ensuring that the vendors and the third parties with whom we are engaging in our business, we ensure that they are complying with all the applicable laws and policies and code of conduct of the company.
Excellent. So you essentially conducted due diligence before bringing them on board, have agreements with them, share your code of conduct expectations and policies, and also conduct ongoing audits. And I think this is absolutely what we saw come out from the US DOJ while we work with a lot of global companies. I think this is the first time the US DOJ actually spoke very specific about that. A one-time, point-in-time due diligence is not the best way. You need to have ongoing monitoring. So I think that's
absolutely,
so that's very nice. Let's further the topic of ethics and compliance a little bit more. Now, as an organization that values ethics and compliance is absolutely at the highest level, how do you ensure that you get the right amount of feedback from the bottom of the pyramid to help you continue to improve the guidelines and the policies that you have?
Actually, very right time for this question. We have this robust code of which I just mentioned to you in my previous question. That code of conduct we continuously keep evaluating. In fact, there is an exercise going on currently in the organization where there's a separate ethics and compliance department at a global level. They reach out to the people all across the globe, and they continuously keep taking feedback from them. So there is a proper mechanism of reaching out to people, asking them questions, and asking them openly about what is that we can improve or what is that we can do differently. So the updation, continuous evaluation and updation of the code, as well as the system which we implemented, is something which organization keeps focusing from time to time. There are in between they keep doing the surveys, employee surveys, and for their views and opinions and suggestions, which also shows gone on to shows that organization is listening and is open to suggestions from people from its people. So that is one of the best way, I think, for continuously keeping itself best and updated from time to time, so that you not completely outdate and keep doing things as the time changes, as the law changes.
Excellent. Let's shift gears a little bit. As you know, we have a very large audience and they love to hear from leaders like you. Let's take a little peek inside who you really are. So if you were not in this profession of compliance, ethics, governance, what would have been your alternate career?
I'm a foodie by nature. So had I not been in this profession, probably I would have opened a good Indian restaurants and running it. So I would have definitely been in a food business had I not been in this ethics and compliance profession.
That is so interesting to know. I was chatting with Anubhav Kapoor of Cummins earlier in the day, And he said his alternate career would have been, he would have been a chef. So maybe we can get the two of you together to kind of come up with the best restaurant where all the lawyers and the legal professionals can visit.
I swear, you are right. Would love to connect with him.
Most certainly. All right. So how do you keep yourself motivated and on the point?
See, some of the things which I do, I mean, you need to either make some leader or some person as your idol, which keeps motivating you. In my case, what I've done, I've set some goals, both at a professional level as well as a personal level. Achieving those goals actually keeps motivating me, and then a desire. So as long as you keep your goals a bit stressed one, you will be motivated to achieve them all the time. So my motivation is my professional and personal goals, which keeps motivating me from time to time.
Excellent. One last question before we wrap up this episode and get with on the closing comments. So this is a very vast area that you've chosen, and clearly you have picked up multiple areas as your specialization as you progressed in your career. How do you keep yourself updated with developments in this space?
See, in today's digital era, information flows from multiple sources. So it becomes absolutely important that you pick and choose the right channel for updating yourself. There's a WhatsApp, there is so much of social media, there is so much of various newsletters which keep coming up. Over last 1.5 years or so, I must say that the legal tools which we have implemented at in our organization, that has become a very good source of information and updation for me on a personal level on all the legal issues or all the changes which are happening in the legal sphere. So in fact, during this lockdown, Legal Tricks tool has been very, very diligent in terms of sharing all the notifications, not only at the central level, but also at state and local level. So I would like to thank Legal Tricks team for being so diligent and being fast and agile enough to share all the updates with their clients.
I'm so delighted to hear that. If I can steal 30 seconds in this video interview of yours, the lockdown was most impressive. On an average, we track about 200 to 250 notifications a month. But during the 90 days of lockdown, that shot up to 500 a month. And that's a phenomenal. We were actually living the VUCA. But thank you so much. Now, let's move on to your closing comments. Any tips or pointers for the young audience that we have out there?
See, I will say that, to become a good and successful leader, you need to have multiple qualities, right? You need to have your knowledge and domain expertise. You need to have a good people management capabilities and skills. But I think the most important and in today's time, I would say is the ability to manage complex situations. I think that is something which if today's generation can develop, and how one can develop it, I think by staying calm during the stress situation, and that by focusing on the situation and the solutions at hand. If you are calm and cool, then I think you will be able to find a solution to navigate from the problems. So my guidance mantra to today's generation will be that stay calm and composed as situations to become a successful manager.
Absolutely. What a wonderful parting thought. Surinder, thank you so much for joining us. It brings us to the end of this episode of Enchiridion Video Log. I'm sure we can speak more. Maybe we'll find another opportunity to continue this conversation. Thank you again. Have a nice day ahead.
Thank you so much, Jaideep, for inviting me. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you. See you again.
Most certainly. Thanks.